Hello, and welcome to an unscheduled episode of Office of the Patriot. In this office, I try to make sense out of the nonsense of the progressive left and rhino right. My name is Myron Ybarra, and I'm your host. You may be wondering why I would do an unscheduled presentation of Office of the Patriot. Well, given the fact that I have a very limited amount of viewers and even less viewers who are active on my channel, it gives me a unique opportunity to look at all of the comments in the comment section of each one of my videos. And most of the time, I make it a point to respond while trying to be respectful, even if some of the comments are argumentative for the sake of being, well, argumentative. But I got one comment that was one of the most, if not the most, comprehensive reviews of my channel and online persona as any before it. And as opposed to typing out the response to the viewer, Joe Varga 5982, and I'll call him Joe for short, I felt he brought up a number of points that needed to be either clarified, debunked, or responded to directly. So, without further ado, let's get into this. The first part of Joe's comment focuses on his perception of how I present information on the channel. He stated, and I'll quote, "Your channel format really is one where you just state your one-sided view. Only the comment section is interactive, and you shut down when cornered instead of challenging yourself with honest answers. Keeping the wool over your eyes is your prerogative, of course." Okay, this is what every single channel host does. Everybody who is presenting information on their channel is presenting their perspective on whatever their given topic is. That is, unless they're doing a live stream, which I don't do. I conduct research and I generate a script and I present the information. My hope is that I get engagement via likes, subscriptions, and comments, which Joe does in spades. And to be completely honest, I really do appreciate his time, just like I appreciate anyone who engages with this channel. Now, Joe goes on to infer that because I present this information as a matter of fact, that I'm refusing to admit that I'm wrong, and that can't be farther from the truth. If I'm wrong, I invite anybody, to include Joe, to point out why. Now, there are some topics that I speak to that nobody's going to be able to change anyone's mind on or be able to prove that they are, in fact, correct. One area is religion, and I believe this is where Joe's contention with my position stems from. I've made it abundantly clear, and I've made no excuses for my faith in God and belief in the tenets of Christianity and what's written in the Bible. In his comment, Joe poses a number of questions relating to the Bible and faith. Some of these are, why do you think religions are referred to as faith-based instead of fact-based? And why do you just assume that claims printed in a big book of fables are all true until proven false? And then some of these questions go off on really crazy tangents like, is thunder made by God walking on a metal dome over the earth? I combine that last question for the sake of expediency. Those of you who want to see Joe's comment, please head over to episode 89 in the comments section, and it'll be right there. I won't remove it because, as I stated before, my goal of this channel is interaction. So, this was an interesting set of questions, and not just because I believe that Joe ardently opposes anyone having faith in God. I believe it comes from something deeper. I've found that most people who believe in God, or at least believe in Christian ideals, came by their belief, their faith, as a result of a poignant life experience or experiences. I mean, looking back where I came from to where I am now, it's hard for me to accept that my successes were not part of some grand design. Because, while I did bust my ass for the fruits of my labor, given the totality of circumstance, I probably don't deserve the successes I've seen. Thus, I'm blessed to have them, and I strive to never lose sight of that. But the real reason I have faith in God happened as a result of one incident in particular when I was a kid. And I've never spoken about this to anybody except my closest family and friends because early on, I thought it was probably going to be seen as crazy. But as I grew older and began to understand the tenets of faith and the Bible, this newfound understanding helped me see that this incident was my crossroads, as it were, and I could accept what I was being shown or I could reject it. I chose the latter. And this incident really solidified my belief in God, Jesus Christ, and the Bible. So here it goes. I had a next door neighbor who owned a little 50cc four-stroke Indian dirt bike. She went to the same school I did, and if I'm being completely honest, I thought she was kind of cute, so I didn't mind spending time with her. I believed her bike was built sometime in the 70s, and it was a really cool bike, but it didn't work. I found this out because I asked her to go riding, and she advised me that the splines to the gear shift lever were kind of rounded off, so no matter how tightly you cinched down the gear lever bolt, it would always slip and make it impossible to change gears. Also, the bike was old, even back when she got it, and it had not been maintained, so some of the parts, specifically the carburetor, started to deteriorate. So I offered to try to fix the bike so we could go ride. And she told me if I could fix it, I could use it whenever I wanted. Bam! So I took the bike back to our apartment and I went to work. I went to a friend who welded on the gear shift selector to the spline output shaft of the transmission so I could shift the bike. He didn't use a lot of penetration on the weld to make sure that if we got the gear shift or she got the gear shift machined again, it could be attached via the gear shift lever bolt. Next, I disassembled the carburetor, cleaned out as much of the gunk as I could, and then pulled out the spark plug, cleaned that as well, and then reassembled everything, taking care not to damage the float or the jet or anything else that was in there. And then I changed the oil. I spent half the day and then a good half an hour trying to kickstart the bike to life, unsuccessfully. Then I pulled a really stupid teenager move and asked one of my friends to tie a rope to the front of the handlebar on the bike and then tie the under end of the rope to the rear of his motorcycle. I engaged first gear and then let him pull me, trying to blow out some of the carbon that was in the cylinder just to get the bike started. And after about 10 minutes of this, bam, the bike roared to life. Success. I was exhausted, but I was thrilled, and I brought the bike back to life, but that was short-lived. Because a few days later, I took the bike out for just a little bit of fun. I was about, 5 miles or so from my house out in the country when it died, and it would not restart. It was a really hot, humid day, which made trying to get the bike restarted even that much more exhausting. I was beat. I even went as far as finding the nearest hill, pushing the bike up the hill, engaging first gear, and then letting gravity try to start the bike, kind of like the pull start method I originally used, but with the help of gravity. Again, I tried to kickstart the bike until my right leg was numb, and I was at a point where I began begging God to help me. You know, when you get super frustrated that things aren't going your way, you just lean on just about anything to get some help. At first, it was me just begging God to get the bike started. Then I went into full negotiation mode, thinking that if I promised to clean my room and I behaved a little bit better, that God would step up and get the bike started for me. Now, to be clear, I was not and am not a religious person. I don't think many kids are. My parents were Catholics, and they sent my brothers and I to Bible study and to confirmation classes that we never finished. I think that was because I was a military brat, and that it made it difficult for me to find any type of continuity in my life beyond home life. Anyway, out in the middle of nowhere, hot, sweaty, tired, and extremely thirsty, I'm begging God to the point of tears to get the bike started so I could get home. Oh, another thing. My dad wasn't a very forgiving person for being out past the time I was supposed to be home, so I was worried that I would have to suffer the consequences of his wrath as well. And as a result, in my frustration and desperation, I cried out to God, if you're not going to help me, then to hell with you. Devil, please start my bike. And right after I uttered that fateful phrase, I kicked down on the bike Kickstarter, and it lit right up. That was my crossroads. I immediately knew what I had done was extremely wrong. I could have followed through by jumping on the bike and riding it home, and I would have got exactly what I wanted. But I didn't, because it literally scared the shit out of me. So I dropped the bike on its side, staring at it while it was lying there, idling. I stood there staring at the bike for what seemed like a few minutes while it idled away. In reality, it probably could have been more than a few seconds. I walked over to it. I hit the red kill switch on the handlebars, lifted it up, and pushed it all the way home. That was the last time I rode that bike. Even then, as a young kid, I knew in my heart of hearts that I had stepped over a line that I should have never engaged. And I also knew that if I had jumped on that bike and rode it home, that my life would be completely different than it is today. Now, Joe and maybe some other viewers out there who are watching this video would chalk this up to happenstance. I mean, I was working my ass off on the bike for over an hour trying to push start it, kick start it, get it up the hill, and, to no avail. But during that time, I could have jarred something loose that was stuck, which allowed the bike to start up. And that would be a reasonable explanation. But something told me right at that moment that it wasn't. It was divine intervention. Again, and I've spoke to this position more than a few times, the concept of faith requires what I view as a reach. So again, what's faith? Well, my definition is the belief in something, and in this case, God, with only correlating evidence to support the belief. The space in between the correlating evidence and absolute knowledge is the space that is occupied by faith. And that's where I get the idea of the reach. The reach is a person's extension of faith to come to a conclusion that, in this case, God exists. And I can go on and on down this rabbit hole, but I believe I've made my point. Now, on to the latter part of Joe's comment, where he actually provided some really in-depth insight into my presentations. And for the most part, I'm in agreement. Joe stated, and again, I'll quote, "You seem personable and likable, but your delivery is very slow and dry. There's no smiling, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to invent the personality needed." That last sentence was a bit harsh, but I'll accept it. I believe my delivery comes from years of experience as a peace officer, which all peace officers acquire through the time they spend with their department, as well as my experience as a college instructor. I figured, incorrectly, lecturing would be an easy transition to online presentation, but it's not as easy as it seems, which is the reason why I brought on Angry Mike to bring in some much needed angst and levity to the presentations. It's my hope that they and I will improve with time. I'll close with this. While it may seem that I am hard fast stuck in my positions, that's far from the truth. New information causes me, just like anybody else, to revise their position based on that new information. However, my morals and ethical standards won't change. They are established given my life experiences that have helped shape them. If you're looking for a scientific explanation for this, go look at Glenn Elder's life course theory. To Joe and to everybody else who has taken the time to watch my videos, you do have my heartfelt thanks. Oh, and Joe, I am looking at starting a motorsport channel sometime in the near future. I figure if I'm going to be wrenching on my car and taking it to the track, I might as well document the journey. This concludes this episode of Office of the Patriot. If you enjoyed the content, please take the time to like, subscribe, and share this channel on your social media. Again, it's appreciated. Also, please take the time to comment, like Joe. Social media platforms like YouTube and Rumble use viewer engagement as a metric for channel accessibility. The more people that comment, like, and subscribe, the more the Office of the Patriot channel will come up when content like this is searched for. And as always, have a blessed day. Stay safe out there.